What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Other Guys on the Badlands Podcast Network. I'm Jake Chatsky, joined as always by Paul Kilgallen, member of the Jetheads Pod, as well as the Other Guys. Paul, not to toot my own horn a little bit, but thanks to Tan Man Stan in the Discord, I have been, notified that I am the least famous person to follow Jason Kelsey on Twitter. So, how does it feel that your co-host has such a distinct honor?
That's awesome. I mean, you are also the only person out there, I think, at least of the Badlands crew, who has their face tattooed on someone.
Yeah, I'm not sure which is worse. Which is
get a whole lot of honors that come with your other job. So if the people haven't seen it, there is a horrifying tattoo of Jake that someone actually put on their body.
It's
which
big,
is fantastic.
Too. The guy who got it, and I'll save some of this too because I'm sure we're gonna have to talk about it at some point. But the guy who got it was like DMing me throughout the process, and I was like, "Please make this smaller." And he was like, "No, go big or go home." And I was like, "Jesus fucking Christ!" So,
did he ask you for like a picture to like get it modeled after?
Nope. This was all freehand, frame of reference. Yeah, it was pretty parasocial, pretty surreal, but nature of the territory, nature of being in the media beast. It's been one hell of a week, I'll say that.
I think you have to meet him at some point. You owe him that much.
I'm sure. Yes. Well, I think he'll be making an appearance on the other podcast I work on, which is a whole nother can of worms. But we're here to talk Jets, not Jets tattoos. So we will get into it. Paul, you got like a really interesting topic for us today, but we should probably start. This is the first time we've talked since camps have opened. We were hyped about it last week. We've seen Sauce vs. Garrett clips. We've got Will McDonald news, and also Justin Fields died and came back to life in the span of like 12 hours. We had everything this week. What were your thoughts coming off the first week of camp?
It was a very like you said, we got a little bit of everything, right? We went into camp being like, oh, boring is good. This is boring. And then we had like a lot of news in a really short amount of time, which is great. I mean, the Justin Fields thing, I feel like people aren't going to believe me and think this is revisionist a little bit, but that morning when everybody was freaking out, I was like, man, like, what's everybody freaking out for? Like, this is like, let's just see what the injury is, right? And I get that a lot of it was PTSD related from what happened with Rodgers. But I was very much like, let's just chill out a little bit. Like we'll see what's going to happen here. So when the news did finally come that it was a toe, I was like, oh, okay, like we're fine. So I never got as deep down in the dark place as I think some other people got. The Jets socials have been kind enough to provide me with a lot of material that make me feel a certain way over the last week. A lot of slow motion throws, a lot of dramatic music, all kinds of good stuff. So no, it's been a fun week. I'm just so glad football's back, man. Like we said it a few times already, but like we made it, we're here. And before we know it, we're going to be playing preseason games and then it's all good to go. So I was actually at a carnival last night and I saw a kid. I took my kids to a carnival. Let me be clear about that. I took my children to a carnival locally last night.
That needed a rephrase.
Yeah, for sure. And
I was at a carnival and I saw a kid. Oh my God.
And I saw a kid wearing like a Kelly Green crispy Justin Fields jersey. And I was like, hell yeah, dude. Like, here we go. It's football season. So I'm excited.
We've made it. I will say, the Justin Fields thing, for especially now that it was, pretty much a nothing burger. He was back at practice the next day. One, I should say that's one of the only times I've regretted being on the East Coast, because I think if I was on the Western time zone, I would have just slept through the entire saga.
Yeah.
I would have missed the Schefter tweet. I would have, and then I would have woken up to it's fine. So that was an interesting, 3-4 hours there before Glenn spoke to the media. I do think it was a good contrast, and we're going to talk about some different regimes in a second here, but it was a nice starting point for the Glenn regime to immediately take a different change of tone and be like, look, we've seen what happens when you try and be cagey and be lying about stuff. Like, They were just forthright and honest. They were like, look, this is what happened. This was a precaution. We still need more information, but we think everything's going to be okay, which obviously, it's one thing that they knew they had decent news. So, it was easier for them to be open and honest, but, they're handling things a different way. And that this was a good first step at seeing that. I will say, since you're talking about being calm, cool, and collected, we have to bring up that you got absolutely got in the Badlands group chat, sent out the Adam
I did.
Shelfer tweet.
I did. Yeah. I
Tried to
got,
cause a panic.
and like when I sent it, I wrote like LOL or something with it. And that was because like, I was like, really, dude? Like that, it's insane. Like I wasn't necessarily like
For full
panicking. I
context,
was,
for full context, Paul sent a tweet in the group chat that was like Justin Fields towards Achilles out for the year from Adam Shelfer.
yeah.
So close enough, but
And
not.
apparently, like, I got Will and Joe with it. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I was trolling them and that I didn't think it was real. Like, I thought it was real. But I guess, like, Will, like, showed a couple people. He was at camp that day and he, like, showed a couple people that he was next to. And Joe, like, momentarily panicked. And then Joe quickly, like, realized and slapped me down. He was like, dude, enough with the fake tweets right now. But like I was, yeah, hey, it happens to the best of us, you know. At least Wesley Steinberg is the greatest guy out there doing it right now. At least I didn't get Steinberg. So
You didn't get Steinberg, but yeah, if we're gonna say revisionist history that we were all calm, cool, and collected, that had to be brought up. Just had to be. But it was a great first week of camp, all things considered. You know, coming out unscathed. Like you said, a lot of slow motion and a lot of stuff from the beat. But there were some interesting press conference quotes this week at training camp, which sort of inspired the topic of this pod. So, Paul, it was your idea. I'll let you kick it off.
yeah, so I think over time we tend like the what history looks at about coaches tends to change the more distance you get away from any given head coach, right? So I think to give you a couple examples, like right at the end of Rex, I think we were all like, Rex was a pretty good coach for those few years. And the more time that has gone on, we've been like, Rex was what the Jets needed at that moment. Is he a great football coach? No. I think you could say it happened in the other direction with Parcells, where like we all knew Parcells was great at the time, but we didn't realize how great he was until we got further and further away and the infrastructure that he put in place started to decline. And so I think we got to a place right after the Gase years where we were all so upset and angry and hated Gase so much that we probably gave Robert Saleh, like, I don't want to say too much love coming in the door, but like he just wasn't Gase. So we were all just going to like him pretty much no matter what. And it took a long time for him to really prove that he was bad. Like I think we all gave him a lot more leash than maybe we should have if we weren't coming out of the tumultuous Gase era. And so I started to think about it and I was like, was Gase actually better than Saleh? Like, was Saleh a worse head coach than Gase? And I think that you can make a real case for it. And so the reason I started thinking about it was because AVT had a quote this week where he said something along the lines of like, we haven't really had a lot of discipline around here for a pretty long time, or at least since I've been here, right? So it was framed in the sense of a positive quote about Aaron Glenn. He was asking why Aaron Glenn is good. And then subsequently after that, they were asking, or Connor Hughes was asking Aaron Glenn about a move that Will McDonald put on Membu in practice. And to even call it a move is probably a little strong. Like he ran through Membu. He absolutely powered through him. And Membu's a power guy, right? And Will McDonald is kind of known as a finesse speed guy. And Connor Hughes pressed Aaron Glenn on like, well, we haven't really seen that move in his repertoire. What's going on? And Aaron Glenn just kept repeating like, it's coaching. It's coaching. He's always been able to do it. It's coaching. And that got me thinking like over the Saleh years, we heard a lot of like, oh, well, this rookie's not playing because he hasn't learned how to play all three wide receiver positions yet. Or this guy's sitting because he needs to learn how to be better in run support. And like, there was this weird, like, image of hard coaching that was really just like babying and excuse making rather than actually hard coaching somebody into getting better at something. And so you zoom out a little bit and you look at the rosters that Gase had when Joe Douglas was pretty much tearing down the entire franchise to start a new rebuild. And you look at the rosters that Saleh had and you look at the results. And I went to the DVOA thing thinking that we were going to get some light bulb moment there. We didn't really. It was just bad DVOA pretty much across the board for both of them. But like you look at what Gase had and you look at what Salah had, and I wonder, like, if you give those two guys identical teams and you put them head to head, like who wins? And I don't think it's a slam dunk answer in either direction. And so really what I'm doing here is I'm starting a conversation that doesn't need to be had. It's completely irrelevant, but I'm going to have it anyway. And it is, was Gase better than Robert Saleh?
We are going to start a dialogue. Look, I think it was when you texted me this, I was like, oh boy, this is a take. And, my gut reaction was just, no, he was not. He wasn't better. He wasn't. No. But obviously, so I went to our friends at FTM Fantasy and looked at the DVOA numbers, same as you. They're definitely, they're stark. But I did come away with a couple of different things. First, the first thing that I thought about this was level of expectations, right? And you touched on this a little bit in that Salah had the benefit of being not Adam Gase, which definitely gave him a lot more wiggle room. And he had a longer leash. He coached here for 3-ish and change years as opposed to Gase getting fired after 2 seasons. But there's 2 things. One, like going into the Adam Gase hire, we, especially the Badlands Network, but I think most Jet fans were like, do not hire Adam Gase. Don't do it. He's bad. He's not a good coach. And then he got hired and he was not a good coach. And we were like, see, Salah was obviously a bit more unknown. And so, to your point, it took a little while longer to prove his coaching wasn't necessarily the case. The other thing is that Salah, I think, got hampered by a bunch of decisions that I don't know necessarily how much the blame falls on him, right? The decision to draft Zach Wilson is one of them. He obviously came on board with a guy in Mike LaFleur, and he was like, I want this to be my offensive coordinator. LaFleur ended up being the scapegoat for a lot of Zach Wilson's struggles at the end of the day. But the real thing that I think is when you look at the DVOA, if you want to come away with a takeaway, here's the takeaway that I found. Adam Gase was hired because he was an quote unquote offensive genius who was coaching to where football is going. I understand, by the way, that head coach has to coach both sides of the ball. Like, I understand that. But let me just make this argument really quickly. Adam Gase, offensive guru, in his 2 seasons as New York Jets head coach, the Jets ranked offensive DVOA out of 32 teams in the league. They were 32nd in 2019. And then when he really got to integrate his system into the team, they were 32nd again in 2020. So they were dead last in offensive DVOA both years as Adam Gase's head coach. Robert Saleh, on the other hand, comes in. He's got Mike LaFleur. His first year, he was coming in, by the way, as a defensive guy. Obviously, again, as head coach, you got to manage the entire team. Can't manage one side of the ball. I get that. He brings in Mike LaFleur to, be the offensive side of the brain. First off, his defensive DVOA his first year, which I completely forgot this and kind of found this shocking. He was also dead last in the league on defensive DVOA his first year as Jets head coach. They were 4-13. They were not a good team. The offense did jump up 10 spots to 22nd. But he had a worse defensive DVOA than Adam Gase had either of his 2 years. Gase was 13 and 21 respectively. But then, I made a joke about Adam Gase like really integrating his system. Salah did do that. And the Jets jumped up and, by the way, got better players as a result of drafting. But the Jets jumped up from 32nd, dead last in the league in 2021 to 6th in 2022. Obviously, the offense kind of fell off. They were 29th. Mike LaFleur gets canned for that, even though I think in hindsight, we can all see that was a Zach Wilson problem. They go out, they get Aaron Rodgers. They signed Nathaniel Hackett to be the offensive coordinator, which again, I don't know how much of that was a solid decision versus a ownership, general manager, we're going after Aaron Rodgers type of decision. We obviously know what happens with Rodgers' Achilles. So then you have the dreaded Zach Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett pairing. They match Adam Gase, and they're the worst offense in the league, 32nd in DVOA. But Salah continues to do his job on the defensive end. They peaked at number 3 in defensive DVOA. So again, and then obviously we had the 2024 season. I don't know how much you want to count that for Salah. these full season numbers are obviously hampered by Jeff Ulbrich, but even still, they were 21st in offense and 20th in defense, which would have been right smack in the middle of the Adam Gase tenure. I don't know how much we count that on, in comparison, given how little Saleh coached that last season. But all this to say, I understand that head coach, you have to be able to manage both sides of the ball. And, but based on expectation, obviously Adam Gase was who he thought we thought he was. Robert Saleh was probably worse. In fact, he was definitely worse than what we hoped he could be. But we hired Saleh to be a defensive guru, and hopefully someone would shepherd along the offense. And we were saying, like, if we would lose offensive coordinators, that was a champagne problem, yada, yada, yada. Saleh did his job on the defensive side. He took him from the worst defense in the league, bottom tier defense, to top 6, top 3 in respective years. Adam Gase, offensive guru, was dead fucking last both years. And so all this to say is like, Saleh might have been the bigger disappointment because none of us had hope from Adam Gase, but a pure level coaching perspective, I still give Saleh the nod. Like, if you were to tell me a team was going to hire one of those two guys in 2 years, I would feel way more confident saying, go out there and hire Robert Saleh than try again with Adam Gase.
That's actually a good way to put it. Like, if you were hiring somebody today, who would you take? So,
by the way, don't hire.
Yeah, don't hire either of them, for sure.
Yeah, I think I could see Saleh getting another shot, to be perfectly honest. I really could. I don't necessarily know how it will work out because I think offense is so fundamentally more important in today's day and age. But then again, we have a defensive head coach right now, and I'm very optimistic. So I think if you're able to manage both sides of the ball, even if that's not your strong suit, like, you have to be able to balance both. And maybe that's something Saleh learned from these first 4 years. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend hiring either of them right away, right now, but I can't imagine Adam Gase gets another job as a head coach in the NFL ever again.